Part 17, Normal Sinus Rhythm Part 2. Now, let's go to points 9 and 10, which both start with the letter R, as they are both related to the R wave. Point 9 is whether the R to R interval is fixed. In this point, we need to confirm that the distance between each R wave and the next R wave is fixed. This indicates a regular rhythm. If the interval is variable, this could indicate an arrhythmia. Now, let's go to point 10, which starts with the letter R for rate. Here we need to calculate the heart rate using the number of squares between one R wave and the next. If the interval is fixed in point 9 and we have a regular rhythm, we can divide 300 by the number of large squares between one R wave and the next R wave. So let's say there are 5 large squares between one R wave and the next. Then the heart rate is 300 divided by 5, which is a heart rate of 60. Similarly, if the number of large squares is 4 between them, then the heart rate is 75 beats per minute. Now, here are a couple of questions for you. What is the heart rate if there are 3 large squares between the R waves? Exactly. The heart rate in this patient is 300 divided by 3, which is 100 beats per minute. Excellent. What if there are 2 large squares between the waves? The heart rate will be 300 divided by 2, which is 150 beats per minute. And if it is only 1 square between the R waves, then the heart rate is 300 beats per minute. Great! Some doctors mention another method for rate calculation using small squares, where we divide 1500 by the number of small squares between the R waves. But you know what? Forget about that method. Why do people have to complicate things? If the rate is regular, just divide 300 by the large squares. Never mind this small square nonsense. Now, what if the intervals between the R waves is not fixed and we have an irregular rhythm like in atrial fibrillation? Can we still get a heart rate? Some students actually answer this by saying that they cannot get the rate if the rhythm is irregular. Can you believe their laziness? Of course you can get a heart rate for an irregular rhythm. Well, 30 large squares is 6 seconds. So count the number of R waves in 30 large squares. So, have the rate in 6 seconds. Then we multiply the 6-second rate by 10 to get the rate estimate in 60 seconds. That's how you answer that tricky question. Now, by finishing point 10, we will be able to know whether our ECG has a normal sinus rhythm or not. So, to summarize, for a normal sinus rhythm, we should have the following criteria. The first letter P is the pattern of the P waves is intact. So every QRS has a T after it and a P before it. The second P is the P wave morphology. So the wave's direction and size should both be normal. Positive in lead 2, negative in lead AVR, and 2.5 by 2.5 in size. And the third letter P is confirming the PR intervals are fixed. The first letter R assesses the intervals between the ER waves are fixed. Then the last letter R is calculating the rate, which should be 60 to 100 beats per minute. If points 6 to 10 are all normal, we can say that the ECG has a normal sinus rhythm, or NSR.